The red lights flashed across the control room as the final message came through the speakers. Commander Vextal stared at the screen with his 4 eyes wide open. He had never heard anything like this before. "Play it one more time," he said, quietly to his officer. The young officer named Lockme pressed the button with shaking hands. The sound filled the room again. First there was screaming, then nothing, then a calm voice said just one word. "Terrans." Vextal felt cold all over his body. The Kepler 442 sector had been giving them problems for 10 years now. 3 different groups had tried to build colonies there. All of them had disappeared. The first group was from the Krell Empire. They sent miners to dig for precious metals. Everything went fine for 18 months. Then one day, all contact stopped. No messages, no signals, nothing. When rescue ships arrived, they found empty buildings and equipment, but no people. 2 years later, the Zephyrian Republic tried again. They built a military research base with their best soldiers and scientists. Same thing happened. 18 months of normal reports, then silence. The rescue team found the base clean and organized, but completely empty. The Outer Rim Collective was sure they could succeed where others failed. They sent their newest colony ship with the most advanced technology they had. The colonists were confident and well-trained. They knew about the previous failures and came prepared for anything. Now they were gone too. "Sir," Lockme said in a scared voice. "What are Terrans?" Vextal looked at his computer files about the sector. The planet called Kepler 442b looked normal in every way. It had air to breathe, water to drink, and simple life forms. The most advanced creatures were described as primitive humans who barely knew how to make metal tools. The last survey 50 years ago said they were still hunting animals with spears and living in caves. "According to our records," Vextal said slowly, "Terrans are the local primitives. Stone Age hunters who know nothing about technology." He stopped and thought about this. "But primitive people do not usually speak our language on our communication systems." The door opened and Admiral Korthax walked in. Her reptile-like face looked serious and angry. "Commander, get the Aurora fleet ready. We are going to Kepler 442. Admiral, maybe we should just block off that sector instead. 3 colonies have failed. And now this strange message. Whatever happened to them might be dangerous to us too." "Dangerous how?" Korthax looked at him with her golden eyes. "A disease? A natural disaster? We have studied every possibility, Vextal. The colonies were not destroyed by sickness or accidents. They just disappeared. No signs of fighting, no distress signals until the very end." She walked over to the big screen showing a map of space. The Kepler 442 sector glowed red. "But this time someone talked to us. Someone who knows our language and our communication methods, someone who wanted us to know they were there." Her voice became a low growl. "I want to find out who." Vextal looked at the files again. Each colony had followed the same pattern. Normal operations for exactly 18 months, then complete silence. But the strange thing was that nothing looked destroyed when rescue teams arrived. The buildings were intact, the equipment was working. Even personal belongings were left behind. It was like the people had just walked away from their lives. "Admiral," he said, "there is something else that bothers me. Each colony reported increasing contact with the local population in their final months. The Krell miners wrote about trading with primitive humans. The Zephyrian soldiers mentioned teaching basic technology to the locals. The collective colonists even invited some of the natives to live in their settlement." Korthax turned to look at him. "What are you suggesting? Maybe the primitives are not so primitive. Maybe they have been learning from our people. Maybe they have been preparing." The idea hung in the air like poison gas. If the humans on Kepler 442b were actually intelligent enough to learn from advanced alien technology, if they had been studying each colony and getting stronger, then the 3 disappeared civilizations might not have been victims of some mysterious disaster. They might have been teachers who did not know they were teaching. "Sir," Lockme called out, "I have more information about the final transmission." The voice analysis shows the speaker was completely calm when they said, "Terrans." No fear, no anger, no excitement, just satisfied. Vextal felt his skin crawl. A satisfied voice announcing the name of their species after 3 alien colonies had vanished. It sounded less like a cry for help and more like someone announcing the end of a successful hunt. "Admiral," he said, "what if we are not going to rescue anyone? What if we are just the next teachers they want to learn from?" Korthax was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "Then we better make sure we teach them the right lessons, Commander. Prepare the fleet for immediate departure." As alarms began sounding throughout the station, Vextal wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. But orders were orders, and the mystery of Kepler 442 was about to be solved one way or another. The word Terrans echoed in his mind as he prepared for what might be their final mission. The Aurora fleet appeared at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like metal giants emerging from the darkness of space. Admiral Korthax stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the sensor screens fill with data about the mysterious sector. "What do you see?" she asked her crew. Lieutenant Kexra looked confused as she read the information from her machines. 3 planets that could support life, Admiral. The planet called Kepler 442b shows signs that our colonies were there. But something is very wrong. Wrong how? The colonies are not destroyed. They are just gone. All the big machines the collective used to change the air and soil are missing. But the work they did is still there. The air is cleaner. The ground is better for growing food. Even the weather control systems finished their job before disappearing. Admiral Korthax felt a chill run through her body. "You mean someone carefully took apart all our technology after letting it finish the work?" "Yes, Admiral. It looks like someone knew exactly how our machines worked and waited for them to complete their tasks before removing them." Captain Thisek appeared on the main screen from his ship. His normally confident face looked worried. "Admiral, my teams have looked at all 3 colony sites from space. There are buildings down there, but they look primitive. However, the energy readings are strange." "Strange in what way?" "The buildings appear to be made of wood and simple materials, but they are built with perfect mathematical precision. It's like someone constructed advanced facilities and then disguised them to look primitive." The Admiral felt her worst fears beginning to come true. "Any sign of our missing people?" "No bodies, but there are traces of them. Personal items, clothes, even half-eaten meals in what look like native huts. It appears our colonists were living with the local population when they vanished." Living with them or living like them? The question made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. 3 advanced civilizations had somehow been reduced to primitive conditions before disappearing completely. "Admiral," Kexra called out, "I am detecting movement on the planet's surface. Large groups of people are gathering at the main colony site." The main screen showed images from their spy satellites. Hundreds of human-looking figures moved through the forests with clear purpose and organization. They carried simple tools and wore basic clothing, but they moved like trained soldiers who knew exactly what they were doing. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we are receiving a message from the planet. Put it through." The voice that came from the speakers was calm and friendly. It spoke their language perfectly with no mistakes. "Hello, Admiral Korthax of the Aurora Fleet. My name is Hyun Woo, and I speak for the people of this world. We have been waiting for you. Would you like to come down to the surface? We have many things to tell you about your missing people." Every person on the bridge stared at the speakers in shock. The voice sounded like it was talking to an old friend, not making first contact with an alien species. "How do you know my name?" Korthax asked. "We know many things, Admiral. We have been watching your people for a long time. Please land at the place we are sending to your computers. Bring a small group. You will be safe with us." As the landing coordinates appeared on their navigation screen, Korthax realized they were being invited to land in the middle of what their sensors showed as a primitive village. But somehow this village contained people who could monitor their fleet movements and knew their military ranks. "Admiral," Captain Thisek whispered, over the communication system, "this could be a trap." Korthax studied the information on her screens one more time. 3 colonies had vanished after exactly 18 months each. Now someone who claimed to represent primitive Stone Age humans was inviting her down to chat about it in perfect galactic standard language. How long have your people been studying us? She asked into the communication system. There was a pause. Then Hyunwoo answered with what sounded like amusement in his voice. Long enough to understand that you are good people who deserve honest answers to your questions. Come down, Admiral. Let us show you what really happened to your colonies. And what did happen to them? They became our teachers, Admiral. Very good teachers. We learned so much from them. The way he said it made Korthax's military instincts scream danger. Teachers who disappeared after their lessons were complete. Students who remained behind with all the knowledge but none of the original instructors. Prepare a landing shuttle, she ordered her crew. Full diplomatic team but ready for battle. Whatever is down there, we are going to find out what happened to our people. As they prepared to descend to the planet's surface, Admiral Korthax wondered if they were about to become the next class in whatever school the inhabitants of Kepler 442b had been running. The thought that primitive humans had somehow been collecting knowledge from 3 advanced civilizations was terrifying enough. The possibility that they had been doing it on purpose was even worse, but orders were orders and questions needed answers, even if those answers might be the last things they ever learned. The shuttle landed softly in a field that should not have existed. Admiral Korthax had seen the forest from space, but now she stood in a perfectly clear area, surrounded by buildings that hurt her brain to look at. They appeared to be simple wooden huts with grass roofs, but everything was built with exact measurements and placed in positions that her military training recognized as perfect defensive locations. Korthax stepped out of the shuttle with her team. Captain Thysic stayed close to her right side. Dr. Veltara carried her scientific equipment, and 6 elite guards formed a protective circle around them. What they saw waiting for them made no sense at all. The humans looked exactly like the old survey reports described. They were average height with different skin colors and faces that showed they came from many different family lines. They wore simple clothes made from plant materials and carried basic tools made from wood and stone. But their eyes were the problem. Their eyes showed an intelligence that made Korthax feel like a child being studied by adults. Admiral Korthax, the lead human said, walking forward with a small bow of respect. I am Hyunwoo, as I told you over the radio. This is Soo-jin, who helps us understand other cultures, and Minho, who works with technology. All 3 humans smiled in a warm, friendly way, but Korthax noticed that dozens of other humans around the clearing had positioned themselves to cover every possible escape route. You speak our language very well for people who supposedly never left their home planet, Dr. Veltara said, her scientific curiosity making her forget diplomatic rules. Soo-jin laughed with a sound that was pleasant, but somehow made Korthax feel uncomfortable. We learn quickly. Your colonists were excellent teachers. Our colonists? Korthax stepped forward. Where are they? What happened to them? They are safe, Hyunwoo promised. We moved them to other planets that better suited their needs. We found that forcing different species to live together usually creates problems for everyone. Moved them? Captain Thysic's hand moved toward his weapon without thinking. By what right? This planet was claimed under Confederation colonial law. Minho turned his head slightly to study Thysic with the same look a scientist might use when examining an interesting bug. Captain, may I ask you something? When your people claim a world, do you usually ask permission from the people already living there? The surveys showed no advanced civilization here. The surveys showed what we wanted them to show. Soo-jin interrupted gently. We have learned it is better to watch visitors before we introduce ourselves. It helps us understand what they really want. Dr. Veltara quietly pulled out her scanner and pointed it at the humans when she thought they were not looking. Her face showed more and more confusion as she studied the results. Admiral, she whispered, their biological readings are strange. They are definitely the same species as our records show, but there are changes in their brain patterns and body structure. What kind of changes? Korthax asked quietly. They show signs of genetic improvements and technology integration that should be impossible for their development level. Hyunwoo smiled, having clearly heard their whispered conversation. Would you like to see what we have learned from your previous visitors? We have a place nearby that might interest you. He pointed toward what looked like a simple dirt path leading into the forest. But as they walked, Korthax noticed that the trees were not quite natural. They were spaced too perfectly and grew in patterns that were too organized. When she looked more carefully, she realized they were not trees at all, but carefully hidden structures made to look like trees. "How long have your people lived on this planet?" she asked. "Oh, we are not originally from here," Minho replied casually. "We have been traveling for quite some time. This world just happened to be suitable for our temporary needs." "Temporary base for what purpose?" Sujin looked at her companions before answering. "Research, Admiral. We study other civilizations, learn from them, understand how they think and work and build their societies." She stopped at what appeared to be a rock covered with moss and placed her hand on its surface. With a soft humming sound, the rock split open to show a sophisticated airlock door. "We have learned so much from the Confederation member species. You have no idea how thankful we are for the education." As they went down into the hidden facility below ground, Admiral Korthax realized with growing horror that they were not being welcomed as visitors or even as potential enemies. They were being welcomed as the latest subjects in an experiment that had apparently been running much longer than anyone in the Confederation had imagined. The corridor they walked through was filled with technology that came from dozens of different species, all working together in ways that should have been impossible. She saw Krell gravity machines powering Zephyrian air systems, while collective bio-neural networks connected to computers that appeared to be of human design, but worked on principles she could not understand. "Welcome to our school, Admiral," Hyunwoo said as they descended deeper into the facility. "Class is always in session here, and we have been such eager students." The way he said it made Korthax realize they had not come here as investigators. They had come here as the next lesson plan. The underground facility stretched farther than Admiral Korthax could see. She followed Hyunwoo through hallways that mixed alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. Krell machines that controlled gravity worked alongside Zephyrian, devices that cleaned the air. Collective biocomputers connected to human systems that operated using rules she did not understand. "Amazing, is it not?" Sujin said, watching Korthax stare at everything around them. "Each species that visits brings such different ideas about technology and how societies should work. The Krell taught us how to use resources efficiently. The Zephyrians showed us advanced material science. And the collective..." She stopped at a large window that looked down into a huge laboratory. "They helped us understand how to connect brains directly to computers." Dr. Veltara stared at the labs below where humans worked with equipment that should have been impossible for them to operate. "How can your people use collective bio-neural interfaces? Those systems are genetically locked to work only with their species." Minho smiled. "We are very good at adapting to new things. Let me show you." He walked to one of the interfaces and put his hand on the bio-neural pad. The system responded immediately, with displays lighting up showing information that normally required a collective operator's direct brain connection. "That cannot be possible," Captain Thysek said quietly. "Those systems require specific genetic markers and brain patterns that only the collective possess." "Which we learned to copy," Hyunwoo finished. "Your collective colonists were very helpful in teaching us the basic principles. Of course, we had to change the approach significantly. Human brain structure is quite different from theirs." Admiral Korthax felt a cold understanding beginning to form in her mind. "You experimented on our colonists." "Experimented?" Sujin looked genuinely surprised. "Oh no, Admiral. We learned from them. They taught us willingly, at least in the beginning. Humans are naturally curious about other species and their abilities. We simply encourage that curiosity." They entered a massive room lined with objects from dozens of different civilizations. Korthax recognized hegemony ceremonial weapons, Rigelian art pieces, and technologies from species she had not even known had made contact with this sector. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked quietly. "Define what you mean by this," Minho replied. "Learning from other species? Adapting their technologies? Watching galactic civilization develop?" He pointed to a display showing star maps that included regions far beyond Confederation space. We have been traveling for, well, time becomes less important when you are covering these distances. Dr. Veltara was studying a collection of artifacts with growing alarm. Admiral, some of these items are from the lost colonies in the Vega sector, the expeditions that disappeared 40 years ago. And the Proxima incidents, Thisek added, recognizing military equipment from several unexplained losses in Confederation records. Hyunwoo nodded with approval. You are beginning to understand. Humans do not conquer through force, Admiral. We learn. We adapt. We improve. Every species we encounter teaches us something new about survival, about technology, about the universe itself. What happened to our people? Korthax demanded. They are living productive lives in sectors better suited to their needs, Sujin replied. Once we had learned what we could from them, we relocated them to uninhabited worlds with resources appropriate to their development levels. They are probably founding new colonies as we speak. Without their technology, without their ships, they did not need those things anymore, Minho explained patiently. We had already learned everything useful from their technology, and we integrated their ship designs into our own systems. Keeping duplicate equipment would have been wasteful. The scope of what they were describing began to hit her. Korthax realized she was looking at a species that had been systematically collecting the knowledge and technology of every civilization they encountered, then throwing away the sources once they had extracted everything useful. You are parasites, she said quietly. Hyunwoo thought about this. An interesting way to look at it. We prefer to think of ourselves as students. Though I suppose from your point of view, the difference might not matter much. What do you want from the Confederation? The three humans looked at each other, and for the first time their expressions became serious. Want? Sujin repeated. Admiral, I think you misunderstand the situation. We are not asking for anything from the Confederation. She smiled, and the expression was no longer warm or friendly. We are offering you a choice. The room suddenly felt much colder. Korthax realized that everything they had seen, all the technology displays and cultural artifacts, had been a demonstration. Not of what the humans had accomplished, but of what they were capable of taking. What kind of choice? She asked, though part of her already knew she would not like the answer. Join us willingly, Minho said simply, or continue as you have been until we have learned everything we need from your civilizations. And then? Hyunwoo's smile never wavered. Then we move on to other parts of the galaxy, and you get to keep whatever we decide is not worth taking with us. Admiral Korthax realized they were not negotiating with equals. They were being given the same choice a laboratory animal gets when the experiment is finished. The meeting room deep inside the human facility had been set up to hold different types of alien beings through holographic projections. Admiral Korthax sat across from Hyunwoo, while the Confederation High Council appeared as glowing images around the circular table. Chancellor Vexmore of the Hegemony spoke first, his artificial voice filled with barely controlled anger. You are telling us that this primitive species has been systematically stealing from our colonies for decades. Stealing is such a harsh word, Sujin replied calmly. We prefer to call it educational cooperation. And we are hardly primitive. Chancellor, that was simply a useful assumption on your part. Council Speaker Thyleon leaned forward, her insect-like features clicking with irritation. What gives you the right to move our citizens without asking them? Minho tilted his head thoughtfully. The same right you claimed when you marked their worlds for colonization without asking the people already living there. We simply used your own logic. We surveyed those worlds, Admiral Korthax said. Your people showed no signs of advanced civilization. Because we chose not to show them, Hyunwoo explained patiently. We have found that most species react badly to discovering they are not the most advanced civilization in their area. It is usually better to let them keep their assumptions while we watch and learn. Dr. Veltara, who had been quietly studying data throughout the discussion, suddenly looked up with wide eyes. Admiral, I have been comparing their technology displays with our records of unexplained events throughout Confederation space. The pattern matches dozens of incidents over the past century. What kind of incidents? Chancellor Vexmore demanded. Disappearing scout ships, colonies that went silent, first contact missions that never came back. She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. The Andromeda contact crisis, the Omega Sector silent zone, the Great Filter event. The council chamber fell completely silent. Every species represented had lost expeditions, colonies, or exploration vessels to unexplained circumstances. Events they had blamed on natural disasters, hostile environments, or simply the dangers of space travel. Sujin nodded with approval. Your scientist is quite observant. We have been part of galactic civilization far longer than you realized. We simply prefer to remain invisible. You have been studying us like laboratory animals, Council Speaker Thyleon accused. And you have been excellent subjects, Minho replied without any shame. The variety of approaches to technology, social, organization, and problem-solving has been invaluable to our development. Chancellor Vexmore's image flickered with rage. I do not care how advanced they think they are. Deploy the Grand Fleet. We will show them what happens when they threaten the Confederation. You will what? Hyunwoo interrupted quietly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Chancellor, your Grand Fleet consists of 3,000 ships using technology we learned from your people decades ago. We have had considerable time to develop improvements and countermeasures. The holographic displays around the room suddenly filled with tactical information that made Admiral Korthax's blood freeze. Ship movements throughout Confederation space, intercepted communications, detailed analyses of every major military base and defensive system. The humans had not just been watching, they had been mapping every aspect of Confederation civilization with surgical precision. However, Sujin continued, her voice returning to its earlier warmth, we did not bring you here to threaten you. We are offering you a choice. What kind of choice? Admiral Korthax asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Join us, Hyunwoo said simply. Become part of something larger than your individual species' ambitions. We have learned that forced cooperation rarely produces good results, but voluntary partnership. He gestured to the technology around them, can benefit everyone involved. And if we refuse? Minho smiled sadly. Then you continue as you have been. Your colonies will occasionally go silent. Your exploration missions will sometimes disappear. Your technological development will proceed at its current pace while we continue to learn from you. He paused. Eventually, when we have learned everything useful from your civilizations, we will move on to other parts of the galaxy. Leaving us behind like discarded test subjects, Dr. Veltara whispered. Leaving you to develop according to your own nature, Sujin corrected. We do not destroy what we study, Doctor. We simply move on to new subjects when the educational value has been exhausted. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. They were not being conquered or destroyed, they were being outgrown. What exactly are you offering? Council Speaker Thyleon asked carefully. Partnership, Hyunwoo replied. Your civilizations continue to operate as they always have, but with human guidance for problems that exceed your current capabilities. Think of us as consultants for the impossible. In exchange for what? Continued access to your technological and cultural development, Minho said honestly. We learn from you. You benefit from our accumulated knowledge. A fair exchange. Admiral Korthax studied the humans across the table. They looked so ordinary, so deceptively simple. But behind their calm expressions lay an intelligence that had been manipulating galactic civilization for longer than most species had been traveling through space. You have been managing us all along, haven't you? She realized. The problems that got solved mysteriously, the threats that just disappeared, that was you? Sujin nodded. Some of your species' conflicts were becoming genuinely dangerous to galactic stability. We occasionally intervened to preserve our research subjects. My gods, Chancellor Vexmore breathed. You have been treating us like children playing with dangerous toys. More like students with tremendous potential, Hyunwoo corrected gently. Very promising students who sometimes need guidance, but students nonetheless. The conference room fell silent as the full scope of the revelation settled. over the Confederation leadership. They had never been the dominant force in their region of space. They had been subjects in a study conducted by a species that had been watching, learning, and subtly guiding their development for generations. As the meeting ended, and the council, members prepared to make the most important decision in their civilization's histories, Admiral Korthax realized that the last signal from the sector had not been a warning at all. It had been a graduation announcement. Humanity was done hiding. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready for what came next.